Hello everyone, welcome back to Keisha's Logic. Today's topic is going to be a doozy for some of y'all, so disclaimer, um, this may be a little hard for some of you, especially if your relationship with your parents are not the best, so I'm giving you guys a trigger warning. I do want to share this topic with you guys today because I think it's very important. I think it's one that a lot of us deal with as now we are parents for some of us, or we're in relationships, or we're becoming more self-aware as we get older. It's a topic that is often brought up. As I have shared in my first two videos, I really believe in therapy, and so this is a topic that often is brought up. When you go to therapy, they ask you about your childhood, they ask you why you feel you are the way you are. And so today I'm going to talk to you about daddy issues. Now, I do want to say that that term is not a medical term at all. It's more of an attachment theory for those who have psychology background. A lot of people relate daddy issues to Freud, who had the different stages of psychosexuality. And so for me, and based on the story that I'm going to share with you today, my story begins at stage 4 of Sigmund Freud's theory, and it talks about the Oedipus complex. Now, I will say that as a woman of faith, I also do believe in psychology and therapy, and so although Freud's theories were a little bit out there, he has some good points. At the end, really what it comes down to is lack of attachments, the different types of attachments that we may have with our parents, and how that affects us into adulthood. So now that I've given you a little bit of the background of why this topic is important, I'm just gonna go right into it. So my dad. So I am blessed that I was raised by a stepdad who was fantastic. He was not perfect as a husband, but he was a great stepdad for me and for my brother. And I'm really blessed to have had him in my life. I still do. And he was great. He's also a great father, a great grandpa to my daughters as well. And he taught me a lot. But today I'm really going to talk about my biological father. May he rest in peace. He actually passed away about 3.5 years ago of complications of influenza. And it's a little bit of a tough topic because it is one chapter that I actually recently closed after a lot of years of dealing with his estate and just dealing with a lot of things. And so I'm sharing this with you guys today because I hope that whoever's listening to this, it will free you. It will help you understand maybe why, you went through certain things, or maybe it will give you some comfort that the Lord uses all things, including the feelings of abandonment, the feelings of rejection that you may have from one of your parents or both of your parents, or even a family members, that you can find peace in knowing that sometimes the Lord allows a rejection to redirect you into the right direction. And at least that was the case for me. And so my story goes back to when I was a child. My mom and my dad got divorced when I was about 5 years old. I was very young, and during that time, my father was an alcoholic. That's part of the reason that my mom and my dad got a divorce, among other things. And it was very hard. Although I was very young, I obviously felt the lack of a father figure in my life. I am one of 3 children. I am the youngest. I am the baby of the family. And I do have a half sister, and then my brother, who we share the same mom and dad. So I have to start back there because of the simple fact that if you don't know the background, you don't understand why everything that has happened in my life has happened. And so when my mom and my dad got divorced, my mom moved us to Florida. And my dad stayed in Puerto Rico. My dad was a chief financial officer for a bank in Puerto Rico at the time. He actually retired from that bank as a manager. And so he stayed there. He had no interest of moving to the United States. So my dad stayed in Puerto Rico. But my mom and my dad did have a cordial relationship and were very good at co-parenting. And so during the summer, during the holidays and things like that, they did have shared custody. So me and my brother will come to Puerto Rico, from Florida to Puerto Rico. And we would stay the summers in Puerto Rico in Orocovis, which is where my dad's parents lived until they passed away a few years ago. My dad was a bachelor until he was about 6 years old after he divorced my mom. And so for a long time when we went to see my dad, unfortunately we couldn't stay in his place because he lived in a bachelor pad with a roommate. And so he would drive us up to my grandparents' house in the mountains. And when I say mountains, y'all, I mean only like 2 channels on TV, no air conditioning, cows, bunnies, chickens, no kind of entertainment because we were literally on top of a hill. That type of country, okay? The hot water lasted for like 0.5 seconds. So that was my situation, all right? And coming from Florida, which I was spoiled with air conditioning and all the amenities, it was harsh. I'm not even gonna front. But I did love the time I would spend in Puerto Rico with my family from my father's side. So I really enjoyed those times. It really humbled me, it reminded me of where I came from. And I was really grateful for that time as well. I grew a lot in different areas of my life because of it. But it was rough, y'all. It was rough. So the reason I mentioned that is because when we would go to Puerto Rico, me and my brother, we would spend more time alone in that little house than with our father. Our father did stop drinking for about 2 decades, but he was still a chain smoker. And so a lot of the times he would be out in the bar still, even though he wasn't drinking, or he would just be outside, and he didn't really spend any time with us much. He was not much of a talker, and he was just fighting his own demons. You know, our parents are also human. They're not perfect. And so it was hard for my father to show that emotional connection and to be emotionally available for us, which happened to happen for me during like a very vital stage in my life. And because of these things, it caused me to feel a lot of rejection and feel abandoned and hold a lot of resentment for my father. You see, although my father was not drinking during that period, he was still an addict, right? So when you're an alcoholic, you will always be an addict. It's just that, you know, you're not drinking, but that addictive personality is still there. And I think for my father, he just needed distractions, and maybe it was painful for him to be around us. I don't know. Honestly, I wish I could tell you. I wish I would have had that conversation with my father before he passed away, but unfortunately, I did not. So let's talk about the reason why I'm talking about daddy issues and why this topic is being brought up today. So when I would go there in the summer, I would spend more time alone or with my grandma or with my grandpa than I would with my father. And then there came a point when I was a teenager. My brother is 3 years older than me. We were born actually on the same day, but 3 years apart. And so my brother now was being taken by my father to the bars and things like that while I stayed home. And so, of course, being a teenager, my hormones are already raging, and then let's add the fact that now I feel completely alone. I have no one to talk to. I would call my mom all the time, crying to her, telling her I didn't know why she would send me over here. My dad didn't even love me. And, I just wanted to go back home, to what was my home now, which was Florida, which was with my mom, and things like that. And so this caused me to really search for love in all the wrong places. When I became a teenager, I was very needy. As a girlfriend, I was very needy as a friend. I just had a lot of issues, y'all. Like, I avoided conflict at all costs, and then when I finally would speak up, it was just unhealthy and just toxic. And now that I am older, now that I'm 32 years old, I realize that a lot of my issues, a lot of my triggers really stem from the lack of love and affection that I didn't receive from my father. I can admit that a lot of my issues that I had, even with my spouse, stem from my insecurities because of my relationship or lack thereof with my father. One of the things that I know for me was a trigger for a long time until recently, thanks to therapy, like I said, go to therapy, was the fact that if my partner would leave and I didn't know where he was going, and then he would come very late, it would really, really upset me. I would feel abandoned. I would be worried that he wouldn't come back. And that's because that's what happened to me all through my childhood. My dad would leave. He wouldn't tell me where he was going. I couldn't really contact him. When I would call him, he wouldn't pick up. And then he would come back. And, my father did start drinking again. And he would just be not the same person. It was scary to be around him. I didn't want to be around him because he was a different person. And I knew that he had been drinking, or I knew, that he had just, been doing things he wasn't supposed to be doing. And so it caused me to feel very triggered when people weren't open to communicate what they were doing, and made me be controlling, to be honest with you, in my relationships, and to also be very jealous. So I guess that goes back to the Freud's theory about when, you are a child, how you see your father as someone that you want to be with. And I know it sounds crazy and nasty. Believe me, when I read it, I was like, ew, that's gross. But he basically says that between the ages of 3 to 6, you see your father or you see your opposite sex parent as someone that you want to be with. And so it makes you jealous of the opposite parent because you want that individual's attention. So in my case, right, like I would be jealous of, the love that my mother would receive from my father, and I would want my dad's love, right? And so what happens when you don't have a strong attachment with your father figure is that then you start looking for partners who will fill that void, but oftentimes you end up ending up with partners that have those same flaws that your father figure has. And so I can definitely say that that is very accurate, at least for me, because a lot of the things that triggered me are things that now I deal with or have dealt with. Again, thank the Lord for therapy. But it's something that I now can see where I did look for those things. I don't want to just say bad things about my father. I will say my father was extremely funny. Although he did suffer from depression, he was hilarious. He was extremely intelligent, which is honestly something that now as an adult I look for when building relationships. I know that that's one of the reasons I fell in love with my husband, because he can hold a conversation, and that is key. Y'all, if you're single, make sure you can talk to your man about anything, okay? But anyways, it is something that I did look for in a guy. I always looked for a guy who was intelligent, who was witty, who could hold the conversation down. And then one of the best things, and the things that I will always love and remember with my father, is that he gave me the love for performing, specifically for dancing. My father was known as the man of the 7 shirts because in his trunk he will always have 7 shirts and an extra pair of shoes. Because if you know Orocovi and if you know the country, people would be dancing in the streets, in the pavement, and my dad danced for so many hours that the sole of his shoes will absolutely make holes. And he would have to go to his trunk and switch his shoes. And my dad did not like to be sweaty. So every time he got sweaty from dancing with all the women at the bar, even the married ones, shame, 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 he would go to the back of the trunk and change his shirt. So that's a little bit about my father. He was also very, very about politics. He was always telling me about the BNBs and the other side and la la la. He was really big into it, and he was also a very hard worker. Honestly, to some, he was a workaholic. My father, even when he was deep into his addiction, he always went to work, which is honestly was hard. And for those who have a parent that is addicted to something or have family member, that is something that is the hardest to deal with, because there you have those people that are just not functional, right? And then you have functioning alcoholics or functioning addicts. These are people who are addicted. You know that they have a problem, but they don't recognize they have a problem because they can still wake up and go to work because they're still excellent at their job. And that was my father. My father was an excellent employee, so much so that his company actually paid for him to go to rehab because he was such an asset to the company. And so that is something that unfortunately enabled him because he knew he was good. And so going back to what I was talking about, you know, when I was growing up, I really longed for that conversation with my father. I longed to have that love and affection from him. I longed for him to hear me. I longed for him to give me advice about, you know, dating, about life, just about everything. And I didn't get that. And so when certain things happened in my life, you know, when I was first in an abusive relationship, when I was hurt by people, I wanted to talk to my father, but my father went back into his addiction, and it's just, he wasn't there. He wasn't able to be there for me, and that made my self-esteem go very low. You know, our fathers are the ones who gives us our self-esteems. You know, they're the ones that, you know, essentially we look up to. They are our gods when we're little. And so for me, you know, my gods were broken, you know, and so it really affected how I viewed relationships. It made me have my guard up. It made me not trust men at all because I couldn't trust my father, because I couldn't trust my father to keep his promises. I remember I would always he would always promise me that he would stop drinking or he would stop smoking. And he would say, yeah, when you graduated high school. And when I graduated high school, I asked him, he was like, no, when you graduate from your associate's degree. And then I did that. And so I lived this life of just trying to like succeed so that it would be good enough for him to stop. And the reality is that that was an unrealistic expectation on my part because he had an addiction. And, you know, I promised his daughter wasn't going to change that, unfortunately. And so, you know, today I'm sharing this with you because although, yes, I felt rejected, it did lead me to my calling. It led me to, you know, even though it was a broken road, it led me to better understand who I am as a person and to seek help before it gets too far. As a parent, I now see things of when I am not being that present parent that my daughters need. I also recognize when, you know, there's things in my partner that, you know, can affect my children, and I can have those conversations. And honestly, it led me to depend on God, because at the end of the day, he is my father. You know, he is the one who will never fail me and who loves me unconditionally. But it took a lot of pain, it took a lot of suffering, and it took a lot of times of me not wanting to live anymore. And because I didn't feel love, and I didn't get that love that I so desperately wanted, and I seeked it in all the wrong places. And the pain that I went through just led me to Christ. It made me understand that I was depending on people that unfortunately couldn't give me what I needed, and that void that I wanted to fill, with boys, that I wanted to fill with being the life of the party, that I wanted to fill by being the funniest or being the best of everything, right? And at the end of the day, what I was just lacking, I was lacking that emotional attachment, and I was lacking that love from a father figure. And so for me, I got freed from that once I became a Christian. Once I found my identity in Christ, I realized that my love came from the Lord. My value comes from being the daughter of a king, and that even when my father fails me, I was still good enough to be loved. And so I share this with you because, my story doesn't end with a happy ending. Unfortunately, I did not ever get the opportunity to have that strong bond with my father. Although when my daughters were born, he did change a little bit and he was more active. He would give me a call. He would, check up on me and my daughters more than ever and things like that. But the reality is he reverted once my grandma got very ill. He went back to drinking and he went back to his old ways. And so unfortunately, my father did essentially pass away from, yes, like I said earlier, influenza, but ultimately the reason he couldn't recuperate like other people can recuperate from the flu is because he no longer had any lungs left, and he also had pretty much his liver was non-functioning. And so that is all the consequences of his addictions. And so although it hurt and it was painful, I can say that when my father was in his dying bed, I was able to tell him how much I love him. I was able to tell him that I forgave him, and he was able to give his life to Christ, which honestly was something I've always just wanted. I wanted him to know Christ and for me to be able to see him in heaven. And so I have that peace in my heart that although we didn't have that much needed conversation about everything that happened as a child and everything that I wish he would have done that he didn't do, I at least have the peace that when I go to heaven, I will see my father, and we will be able to praise the Lord together. But I share this with you guys because, if you're a parent, it's so important that you allow your children to be around their father. And if their father has an addiction, or if a father, has done things that are unforgivable for some, that, you pray for them, that you seek forgiveness and reconciliation and work towards making it possible for your children to have a present father figure in their lives, because it is so essential. It is so important. As women, we need a father figure, and men do too. Boys need their father. Boys get a lot of their masculinity. They get a lot of their what they believe is right and wrong from their father figure. And so when they don't have a present father, they're missing out on those things. And so have them have a mentor, have them be part of the boys and girls club, just get them connected to a male figure that could be that present person in their lives, because they desperately need it. I can assure you that a lot of the things that I did as a teenager, a lot of my rebellious ways, because I did have my rebellious stage, stems from that. It stems from wanting to find that love and wanting to find that security from a male figure. And so I searched it in all the wrong places. And so today I encourage you to, one, if you have that type of relationship with your parent that is not healthy, that is toxic, that you forgive them for you, forgive them because you are worth loving, and that, hurt people, and that they're not doing it because they don't want to love you. It may be just because they never got that love themselves, or because they have traumas that they have not healed from. And so I encourage you to do that. I also would say that if you are a parent, to be a present figure in your child's life, to ask your child how they're doing, to spend at least 15 or 30 minutes a day one-on-one with them, to make sure that they feel that they're secure in their attachments with you, because that is so essential, and it will affect them as they get older and try to build relationships with other people, because we are their first example of what healthy relationships are. And so if our relationships are broken with them, then they may think when they grow up that that is what's normal, that conflict is normal all the time, that, you know, having strife in the home, that having parents screaming at you, you know, having people who are not believing you, they're gonna think that that's who they are, and that's what they're gonna see in the mirror, and you don't want that. So I really encourage you guys to think about that. I also do want to say that I will be talking to my daughters. You will see my daughters in a few minutes, and they will share with you what they love about their father and the things that they really love that their father does for them. Because although my relationship with my father wasn't the greatest, I am blessed beyond measures to have a husband who is a very present father to my daughters, and who actively tries his best to be that father figure for them. You know, he is the one that plays with them, that runs around with them, does hide and seek. He is the one who, you know, encourages them, who tells them they're beautiful almost on a daily basis, who gives them the hugs and the cuddles, you know, and who is, you know, that figure, that father figure that they really need. And he also corrects them when they need to be corrected. And there's a balance, you know, there's always that balance that of a parent, you know, you're supposed to be loving, but you're supposed to also correct. You know, a parent who loves their child will correct their child. And so I hope you enjoyed that part of the video today, where you will get to hear from my daughters what they love most about their dad. And, you know, they'll also tell you also things that they may want to see different. But again, they're 6 and 8. But the great thing is that when they tell us these things, we need to really listen. So ask your children these things, and, you know, take note and try to be better, because that's all we can be. We will never be perfect parents, but we can definitely strive to be better than we were yesterday. So thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and just listening to a little bit of my testimony today.
Hey, my name is Jessie Elise, and I'm 8 years old, and today my mom's gonna ask me some questions about my dad.
Awesome. All right. So, Jessie Elise, how would you describe your relationship with your dad?
Good.
Okay, you want to expand on that a little bit?
I like it. Like, it's nice, and it's good.
Okay, all right. How much time does your dad spend with you?
A lot, and yeah, a lot. And sometimes we play games together. Sometimes we play video games. Sometimes we watch movies and play hide and seek and tag.
Awesome. And how often does your dad tell you that he loves you?
Not that often. Just about like 5 or 6 times.
Okay.
At least that's how I remember.
Okay. All right. What has your dad taught you about life? So far, I mean, you're 8 years old, but like, what has he taught you about life in your 8 years of life?
So far, okay. That life, sometimes they have ups and downs, and sometimes that people be mean to you, or some people do stuff to you, and you have to defend yourself and fight for yourself and stuff. And you have to, and life is great, and sometimes it's not how you planned it to be sometimes.
Okay, cool. And what did your dad teach you about love?
Okay, love is you cannot break it. It's always there with you, and it would never like stop and stuff, because you're always gonna have love with you.
Okay, awesome. And what has your dad done recently to make you happy?
Recently, like what he did.
Yeah.
We played mini golfing, and sometimes he makes me laugh. We were playing earlier, and he made me laugh.
Okay, cool. And what is your favorite memory with your dad? think about a moment, and you can take a little bit of time to
Yeah,
think.
because I was like, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. My favorite memory with my dad was when we played together. We played stuff together, and we played yeah.
Okay. And describe how you are like your dad.
We're both funny, and we both like play video games, and we both look like each other a lot. And yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and we both like cooking. And
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jesselis.
Bye. I'm Janice, and I'm 6 years old, and today my mom's going to be telling me some questions about my dad.
Okay. All right, Juliana, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Juliana, describe your relationship with your dad.
So I love him very, very much, and that's probably it.
Okay. Juliana, how much time do you spend with your dad?
Actually, a lot. Probably like every day when my mom's gone and when my mom's here.
All right. And how often does your dad tell you that he loves you?
Probably every day I go to bed, every day he picks me up, and every day he drops me off from school. And every day, of course.
Okay, awesome. And what has your dad taught you about life, Julianis?
He told us that if I ate a bad food I don't like, then he told me the life will never end. You could just eat this food. It's healthy and it can make you strong.
What else has he taught you about life?
That God made this life and it's very good.
Okay. And what has your dad taught you about love?
He taught me about love, to love everybody in your family, everybody, if it's not in your family, and everybody that's your friend, and everybody that's sick, and everybody that died, and be kind and be nice to everybody, everyone and others, and everybody.
Okay. Awesome. And what has your dad done lately to make you happy?
A lot, like playing with me, spending time with me, having like daddy and daughter dance together, a lot of those things.
Okay. So, Juliani, describe your favorite memory with your dad.
When I went mini golfing with him, and we pretty much did everything in mini golfing. It was so much fun. We like went to Bomb the Breeze and got dessert and most of those things if you go to daddy-daughter dates with your dad.
Okay, like a daddy-daughter date. You went on a daughter. Oh, awesome, awesome.
With my sister.
Okay, cool. And then describe how you are like your dad.
We both sometimes we have like the same movies. Sometimes we like going to this like same places and stuff like that.
Okay, and lastly, what do you wish your dad knew?
I don't know. I have nothing in my mind right now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Julianis, for answering the questions.
And make sure to subscribe to my mom's YouTube channel. Bye.
Please make sure to subscribe, press like to the video, and comment below. Also, let me know if there is something that you would like to see, a topic that you would like me to go a little bit further on. And if you have any questions about daddy issues, about Sigmund Freud, about the attachment theory or anything like that, please feel free to email me or just ask me the question in the comment section, and I'll make sure that I respond. Hope you guys have a great day, and God bless. Bye.